Now, there's other interesting rules that we can try to do, right, that are not related to Windows event logs. LimaCharlie produces a lot of events by itself, and especially, the example that we had above of 4688, which is a process execution, that's trivial to detect in real time for LimaCharlie, but also some other types of interesting events. So the next few rules are kind of native Windows event log, not Windows event log, native LimaCharlie events. So here's a rule where we're targeting the hashes that we mentioned earlier. So LimaCharlie by default will emit new document events when a file gets created with a specific, with an extension that's in the list. So that list will contain kind of all the common extensions that are useful. So that'll be, EXEs, DLL, PDF, .doc, and ASPX. So in our case, we know that, if something drops that web shell to disk, that we're going to get a new document event from that endpoint. So what we're saying here is, let's create a rule where we're saying if any of the following new document, if a document event occurs and it has a hash that is any of the following ones, I want to detect that and do something about it. So I could create that rule, and that would tell me if those specific web shells get dropped to disk, and that would happen in real time. So extremely quickly is really the big advantage there. But if we're looking at new documents, Microsoft also talks a lot about some of the paths that are commonly used by that attacker, right? So we observed web shells in the following paths. So maybe we're interested in seeing if ASPX files get dropped into those directories. So we're creating another rule that is new document again, right? It's an ASPX file getting dropped. And we're saying if any of the following regular expressions match the file path. So those are just looking for anything.aspx in those specific directories. So if I create that rule, again, in real time, if an ASPX gets dropped there, we'll get that right away. We can keep going. So now we've covered, known hashes. We've covered known directories and the file type that goes along with it. There's also a bunch of, not suspicious, but common file names that they use very commonly, right? So if I look for web.aspx, again, was detected had the following names. So you probably want to be careful here, especially, if you're looking at, they had error or help.aspx. That might be a legitimate file in your deployment, but it's still, worth a shot in the early days of trying to detect anything like that happening. So here we're doing the same, new document, again, ASPX events, new document events will come in real time for ASPX. And we're just saying if the file path ends with, /web.aspx, we want to generate that detection. So we're putting in all of the common names that they have. There's a few of them. I think that we use a regular expression like here, they have error and then 2 characters. So we have a regular expression. So that's a good way to detect a potential web shell being dropped by those attackers. But obviously looks very much like a very human trait. So that could pretty easily change.